Hey everyone, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, as well as the publisher at Autonomy Global. We are rounding out an incredible month that we dedicated to the theme of energy, and it was sponsored by Suncor Energy, a company that's doing amazing things all across North America. And when I think of the energy sector, I automatically think of Sean Guerre. He is the executive director of the Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition and a friend to the show. And we're just so looking forward to having you back, Sean. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. Excited to be back here with you. Always enjoy having a chat. We seem to get into some great topics and love being around the world of energy and drones, robotics, and data every day.
Yeah, well, look, we're deep in the quarter two, Sean, and your event's rolling up soon. We're gonna get into that. But before we do, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Yeah, for those like, 5 people out there that don't know you.
Sure, happy to do so. Thank you. So I am, fortunate to be with InnovateEnergy, which is a media and community-based company focused on emerging technology that impacts energy and utilities, the industrial and critical infrastructure. So we cover things that are really affecting people on their day-to-day operations in oil and gas, utilities, chemicals, and make sure that they're able to operate more efficiently, more productively, and safely. So that's where I came from, was a background of energy and tech. So this has been a great journey over the last 10 years. And Energy Drone Robotics Coalition is one of our, most important and fastest growing communities.
So tell us a little bit about that community. I mean, we talked about it on other shows, but just to kind of catch people up in the event they have, there's still people, Sean. I walk around and they're like, we want to get into critical infrastructure. We want to, we want to work in the energy sector. I'm like, are you following Sean Guerre? Like, do you know about Energy Drone Robotics Coalition? So tell everybody, kind of that 30-second elevator pitch of what EDRC is all about.
Sure. So EDRC is a group of 20,000 folks globally, little over 200 energy and utility companies who operate drones, robotics, and data on a daily basis. And our job at the EDRC is to make sure everybody understands the best practices, the use cases, the technology, and the trends that they can use to deploy on their projects and to expand their programs. So that's really what we do every day.
And I know a big part of your mission is education, and that kind of is part of your origin story, looking around, and thinking, hey, people need to start talking to each other about the early adopters and what's happening in terms of robotics and autonomy and drones, in this energy sector. But we have a really cool video because you guys do so much in that education space, whether it's your newsletter, whether it's your annual summit. And I think this video we're going to show kind of synopsizes the summit a little bit, which is really your keystone event. So let's go ahead and roll tape.
We are at the Woodlands Waterway Marriott in Houston, Texas. I am Sean Guerre. I'm the Executive Director of the Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition. So we're here for the annual summit, the 8th annual summit of the Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition, to bring together robotics, drones, and autonomous operations, along with the folks who are working on data, and to make it actionable. We have a couple really interesting themes that are going on this year. One of them is certainly around interoperability between the robotics, ground, submersible, aerial, and the ability to coordinate those to capture data and have data analysis around assets in the energy markets, both power and utilities, oil, gas, and chemical. Another area that I think is very interesting this year certainly has correspondence to the overall ability of AI and ML enablement around the technology, which is very exciting for technology as far as drones and robotics and how they're utilized in the field, as well as the data they capture and how it's analyzed.
I can't stop smiling, Sean. First of all, you include me in that video, which is funny, but we were both just at Exponential in Houston, which is, Petro Metro, your turf, and you were part of my Law Tech Connect. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But something I said there really applies equally, I feel, to your event, which is when I do Law Tech Connect every year, I feel like it's a family. And, watching that video and seeing so many friends and familiar faces and the technology that's so familiar to us, but that continues to evolve over time and goes to your show because it's so targeted on the energy sector. I love what you do. And so let's talk a little bit about that, Sean, because we've seen so many changes, I think, over the years. And you and Megan Horn did an amazing article in January for Autonomy Global, looking back on 2024 and some of the most popular articles, of the year in the energy sector that you guys had posted in your newsletter. But what would you say now that we're in 2025, right? And like I said, we're pretty deep into Q2, so almost half a year under our belt. What would you say are kind of let's say the three biggest things that you're seeing in terms of technology, autonomy in the energy sector?
Sure, you bet. Happy to jump in there. So basically, if I were to put it down to just three, because obviously we could talk all day on different
Yep,
things
yep.
that are of keen interest to energy and technology, because technology honestly is being deployed everywhere in all ways in energy now. So we're definitely not an early adopter, but we are a fast follower, and we do it at scale. So one of the things I would say is certainly, particularly I see it on the utility side of our audience and our community, that we're starting to see that the BV loss operations and waivers are really much easier to obtain, and the projects are moving forward faster. So really fortunate. I know we're all anxiously awaiting Part 108 and what it may bring for all of us
Yes.
as that winds its way through the process of becoming something that we can utilize. But for right now, we're starting to see some really interesting things. So you've seen, for instance, Southern Company recently had a waiver around a quite heavy drone, the Swiss drones that they can use in their operations. We're starting to see multiple pipelines and transmission lines. They're starting to fly 50 miles, 100 miles. I mean, really long distance that these
Yeah.
cases are being made. So I'm excited about what we're seeing, certainly in that area around UAS. Number two would definitely be, I would say, using the fast moving area of AI on both the front end and the back end, helping build the autonomy picture. So we're seeing a lot of drone manufacturers and robotics manufacturers starting to truly deploy AI as the brain of the UAV or the robot. And I think
Yeah.
that's exciting to be able to enable detect and avoid and a variety of other tasks that allow the robots to be deployed in the field more easily with humans in many cases. as cobots or collaborative robots. And then in other areas, I would say with AI, it's obviously very keen for folks to make data actionable, right? That's
Yeah.
the key. How do we make it actionable? And they're using AI to extract information, to do the inspections as far as looking for anomalies, and then handing that over to the human inspectors so that they're able to then look at it, as well as then utilize AI to put that possibly into an ERP system so that you actually can deploy teams to make changes before something occurs, let's say for a utility that might cause a wildfire or make it harder for them to reestablish electrical service after a storm. So
Right.
I think that's super cool to see the way AI is being, adopted throughout, I would say, the value chain. So that's number two. And then number three, we're starting to see some really interesting case studies that are emerging and around utilizing different types of software to manage multiple drones and robots simultaneously and
Ah,
remotely. So this is showing up simply right with drone docks. I mean, I bet we have 4 sessions and use cases at the summit, which we'll talk about in a little bit, just
yeah.
on drone docks and the different ways they've been deployed in for utilities, for oil and gas companies. Uh,
Right.
and so it's super interesting to me for that autonomy of let's just say a single drone in most cases. But then we're starting to see operations rooms being spun up, particularly here, like you say, in Metro Houston, where they're
Yep.
able to operate and utilize many drones in different places, different fields. I'm not talking swarms necessarily. That's more of a defense testing thing at the moment, but multiple robots, or they're using ground robotics and aerial. And so we're seeing multiple or ground, marine, and aerial. Some of this is information that certainly has come from conflicts that have occurred and that's crossed over from the defense into the commercial market. But
Yeah.
Energy is very keen on utilizing multiple types of robotics and drones in order to establish the data they need. So an offshore rig is a great example. It's,
Yep.
aerial, it's, tactile, you want to touch it for, ultrasonic thickness, and then you have a lower part under the water, marine. So that's
Yeah.
an exact example. So I would say that's number three is, interoperability and multiple robot, management with software. So those are three, I'd say, big ones.
Oh, that's a great rundown, Sean. And I know you were at our Law Tech Connect, and we heard offline. Actually, I think it was during our full crew live cast from the floor at Expo. I think it was Jennifer Richter said, "Rumor on the street," and this was what, a couple weeks ago, right? It's about 60 days for Part 108 to come out, the Notice of Public Rulemaking. That's the estimate, and we're hearing 1,000 pages. So good times reading that, hopefully full of goodness. But agree, this is going to open up, the industry. And wouldn't that be great if that came down before the FAA drone and AAM symposium, so we actually had something new to talk about. So more to follow there. And absolutely all the things you said in terms of those other 2 points. So thank you so much, because you are the expert here. And we just actually had a full crew newscast on AI yesterday, talking about agentic AI and use in defense. But cybersecurity is a huge issue. Like, if I was going to pick a number 4, I feel like that's always just like out there, because all of these things are connected, especially as we go beyond visual line of sight, especially as we start going multimodal, multi-domain. So I think we're going to hear a lot about that more, in the coming months as well. But speaking of coming months, let's talk more about your summit, because this is coming up in what, almost like 2 weeks, and I can't believe it. So tell us a little bit about why the summit, because you guys do a lot of different events locally. The Bots and Brews. You have meetups and things like this, but this is your one big one. I'd say your biggest one every year, and this is what, your ninth annual.
This is actually our ninth annual. So hard to believe, but yeah, ninth annual. coming up in just 3 weeks, June 16th through the 18th here in Houston, up at the Woodlands, which is a beautiful area. As you know, you've been part of it for many years, and we've been
Yes, yes.
there, I think, at least the last 4 years. So it's a really nice area, nice facility, and we're going to gather about 1,500 of our community who will come together from the various energy companies and service providers and technology solution providers to talk about these trends, to show real use cases. A lot of the energy companies are very generous in sharing what projects they're working on and how they're deploying, and some of the early results. And we have that from across the spectrum, and I think that that's going to be really exciting. So some of the top tech that we were just talking about, these trends, these market drivers, we're actually going to be unpacking those and talking about how they're being utilized today on projects and programs, and where we're headed. What does the rest of 2025 look at as we start to unpack things, which I'm sure the legal eagles will be very busy with the 1,000 pages for part 108. But, for us down here, on the ground, we're going to be looking at it as well, because obviously we want to know how we'll be able to deploy and when.
Well, yes. I mean, everybody needs to read that, and if they have concerns, they need to comment and exercise, right, their voice there for sure. Look, we saw a picture of, I think it was Anra, Brent Clavon on the stage there. You had the show floor. There's similar things for about your event that might be comparable to others, whether it's Geo Week, whether it's Exponential. But tell everybody what makes EDRC, what makes your summit different, and the fact that it's been going for 9 years.
Sure. So every event has its reason. I mean, there's a reason for each event and where it fits in the ecosystem. Or in the case of some events, they are the ecosystem. I mean, that's just what they do. They bring together all the suppliers, and there's a lot of transactions going on between the exhibitors and manufacturers and the component folks. And the difference for us is we're very much end user focused. So what does that mean? That means the folks who actually operate drones and robots and have to handle the data and get that to various stakeholders and make it actionable, those are the people we're dealing with at a oil and gas company or utility or a chemical company, or the service providers who do the work for them. So think about
Right.
survey mapping firms or inspection firms that do work all specifically in the energy critical infrastructure. And I think that's really what makes us unique, is that end user focus and the fact that we are one sector. It's a very large sector, thank goodness, but it's actually one sector. So we're not multi-sector commercial, and we're not ecosystem. So that's really the biggest difference, I would say, is that for the folks who are in the energy sector, this is the event. And that's what I'd say we established over the last 9 years, is that there's one event in the world for energy, for robotics, drones, and data. And fortunately, that's us at the Energy Drone Robotics Summit each June.
Yeah, and when you think about air, you think about land, you think about sea, or just water, whether it's a USV, uncrewed surface vessel, or a ROV, a remotely operated vessel under the water. Those folks are showing up, and I think that also makes it different, because the energy sector, they need robots that can go in water, even in things like nuclear power plants. I never really thought about that, Sean, until I went to your event and saw some of these companies. Now I want to show this picture. Oh, there we go. That was the Aquanaut. Like, that thing is flipping huge. But these guys, they show up. They bring their tech. They display it outside. They display it inside. I think that's really cool. Now you also do something, again, somewhat similar to what we're seeing, but like also at the same time nuanced. So, for example, drone responders comes to your event, and they do, let's call it a co-located event there, but it's hyper focused on like disasters in the energy sector, right, Sean?
Yeah, if you think about it, we're really, very happy to have them each year and honored that they come with us to co-locate. The Texas Emergency Management Forum is really their theme. And what they try to do is really come across between the energy sector and public safety where they interact when there is an incident, right? So whether that's an incident at a plant or an energy facility, or if it's a natural disaster, right? So if we're looking at some sort of wildfire or tropical storm that's impacting, or a freeze, you certainly energy infrastructure is a key piece to protecting it, doing damage assessment, and getting it back up as fast as possible so that people and businesses can get back in action. And so there's a whole lot that can be done with drones and robotics and data in that process, pre-event for an incident or a storm, after that event, immediately to do that damage assessment and to basically come up with a prioritization on how to bring it back. Or in some cases to prevent, in the case of wildfires, right? If you're able to
Yeah.
identify infrastructure that needs to be replaced or vegetation that needs to be managed, you potentially could avoid the incident completely. And the same thing in maybe an energy facility, if you could detect a fugitive emission or something that's occurring. So that there's a lot that happens. And then unfortunately, when an incident does occur, like I say, that public safety, they're adjacent, working together. So your
Yeah.
first responders and your energy company, emergency response people, and EH&S folks, they're right there. So it's a really good partnership we have with them, and we appreciate that each year. But it is very focused in those areas where we
Yeah.
cross over versus a general public safety or first responder event utilizing drones or robots.
Yeah, I think that's what does make that one different because I've gone to the Drone Responders National Public Safety UAS conference. Verizon or one of these may show up there just because they're big, and they're looking, to learn more about some of the tech in that space. I think at your event, what makes it unique is having the critical infrastructure owners and operators sitting side by side with law enforcement, with, the firefighters. It's just a little bit of a different group, I'd say, than might venture to pick a name, another conference that Drone Responders is either doing on their own or collaborating with. So, a huge fan of Charles Werner, Chief Werner, and that squad, and everything they do. So it's really cool how they're able to leverage what you've built, to, like you said, make things better together with the civilian partners, frankly, that they need to operate with, which is really key. I love that. You also have, are you doing a methane summit again this year, or
So
like a track?
yeah, so there is actually methane is really now part of our UAV operations.
Yeah,
So basically, it's become such a known use case, that basically I'm not saying it's the exact same as like surveying and mapping and some of those that
yeah,
are in our UAV operations track, but there is very much methane as far as detection and the quantification. We still cover that, and it's definitely something that is being utilized with multiple autonomous technologies, whether it's drones, satellites, sensors, fixed sensors. So it's definitely being deployed across many different energy assets.
yeah. I want to divert for a second and talk about the Law Tech Connect that we just did at Exponential, and you were a moderator, Sean, of that big energy panel. For everybody out there, we're going to be streaming that panel actually in July. So follow Autonomy Global. Obviously, follow me. You'll get word about that and dial in. But it's such a huge thing, and to have the lawyers also working in this space, to have Suzanne Lemieux from the American Petroleum Institute, giving her perspective on environmental compliance and how these advanced technologies are enabling that. Have Richard Naismith from Volatus Aerospace, who assists in those operations. I know Volatus is always a part of your event as well, Sean. Really, really, really cool. And I just want to go there for 1 second. I think this year has been interesting in terms of some of the policies coming out with the new administration. One thing I'll say that I really appreciated, from the panel that you chaired, was the fact that these companies, whether it's they just want clean air, or the fact that third party, like non-governmental organizations, NGOs are watching and the public is watching, uh, tells me that, this compliance thing, even if the regs do roll back, people are going to do a lot of it on their own because there's become a societal expectation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, we call it license to continue to operate. So
Right?
if we see that there is going to be a future that involves fossil fuel, it involves all types of energy, but fossil is one of them, and there is not an immediate off ramp that we can take to go to purely renewable and or nuclear, depending on what you're looking at. But so fossil fuel, if we're going to continue to utilize it for several more decades, we need to find a way to do that as cleanly as possible. And the industry is very much supportive of that. It's an economic, reason to do that. We don't want to lose product via emissions. We want to be a good citizen. It's important for recruiting the next generation, which is so technology enabled and could go work anywhere. And we
Yep.
want them in energy. And so, if we're going to do that, they need to know that they're working for something that's operating as cleanly as possible. So I think that's key, and I think it's a huge expectation of our customers, whether that's here in the U.S. People who are getting their electricity. Number one is they want to turn on the switch and have it, but right behind that, they want something that is as clean as possible. And so we know that, as well as obviously foreign markets that we sell into as well. So as energy providers for the US and abroad, and dominant energy, supplier for the world, it's important for us to do this. So I think depending, we like consistency. So we really don't like to have regulatory change rapidly as it has been. So I think we're going to try to look to have consistent operations. So a lot of this will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. We just showed a picture of me there, Sean. I had a booth and I was talking about Law Tech Connect. Actually, had longer hair there. With your crowd, and you've supported that event in so many different ways, including sponsoring the happy hour this year. At this year's, besides being the moderator, really appreciate all of that. But yeah, okay. So we talked about kind of the drone responders track, if you will, the methane track. What are the other, should we call them tracks or co-located events that people can expect this year at EDRC?
Sure. So we've got, I think it's 10 themes this year.
Whoa.
So yeah, it's really broad because obviously the amount of deployments that we have of all the different areas. So we've got Envision Energy, which is our data visualization analytics, which gets into everything from GIS, AI, digital twins. It's basically all the ways you capture data. How do you make that data actionable? So that's a
Okay.
big one. We have robotics inspection, maintenance, and repair as a whole separate one because there's so much going on there, whether it swims, crawls, rolls, or flies. There's a lot of ways people are doing inspection. And
Right.
we're seeing exciting this year actual movement of robots into maintenance and repair. They're sandblasting, they're welding, they're painting. So we're starting to see some really cool stuff on how they can operate around energy assets, not just to inspect them, but to go to the next level. So that's exciting. Like you mentioned, marine, we've
Yeah.
got industrial cargo drone, which is different than the last mile folks, which has been more prevalent. But we're looking at middle mile and long distance, and it has heavy lift drones are starting to become much more affordable, and we're seeing some great use cases there. Once again, crossing from defense back over into commercial. So we're looking
Cool.
at standing up operations. We also have obviously the drone responders that you mentioned, as
Yep.
well as our humanoid robotics. I think we have 4 or 5 different humanoid robotics that are going to be there, along with our
What?
quads and our rollers. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of different robots that are going to be there.
I'll go out on a limb and say that might just be close to the number I saw at CES, and that's like the biggest consumer electronics show on the planet
Could
back
be,
in,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
super
lot of
cool.
interest because we know it's not, right around the corner, but it's not far off. We're seeing, I think we just saw and reported on Hyundai. Shipbuilding just did a very large order with Persona AI, which happens to be a Houston-based company,
Yeah.
making humanoids they're looking specifically for humanoids to do welding. And those are going to be
Wow.
deployed in 2026 in their
Yeah.
shipyards. As you may recall, Hyundai is also did a very large order just a couple months ago with Boston Dynamics on Atlas, and they ordered it's hundreds or thousands of units
Wow.
also to deploy. So you're seeing definitely industrial energy infrastructure start to look at humanoids and how it can be deployed. And in fact, that's one of a great session we have that Matt Alberts, who's head of innovation for Southern Company, is going to be
Yeah.
talking about AI and humanoids, the next step for utilities robotics. So, I mean, they're getting ready for these things.
I can't wait to cover so much of this for Autonomy Global. So everybody stay tuned. Well, first of all, go to the event, but you can't
Yeah,
be everywhere all at once. And I'm going to try to capture as much of this as I can. So I'm super excited.
awesome. So those are the themes, and that's some of the hot stuff that's kind of coming up that I'm excited about as well. That we'll be talking about in just a few weeks.
Okay, well, you mentioned the workforce, Sean, and I want to go there because you do something that I really applaud. You generally open up your doors to some of the schools in the local community. Can you tell us a little bit about the STEM outreach that you do as part of your event?
Sure. So we do definitely agree that, in order to have a huge growth in robotics being deployed anywhere, but particularly in the energy industry, it's key to make sure that we have the people who are going to become the future robotic engineers, the future UAV pilots, the future folks who are basically building and, operating and maintaining all of these robotics that we want to have deployed. So what we do is work with basically from middle school all the way up through colleges. Anyone who's in a STEM program or a robotics club or a drone club, something along those lines that has already showing an interest in what's going on around robotics, we invite them to come as our guests, to come to the expo floor and have a tour, walk around, see stuff. They pick up a bunch of swag, which is always fun. So they get that. And then we have one of our industry advisory board members meet with them at the end to answer some questions about what they saw, how they can get into the industry. So that's really important for us to tie it together with someone from the industry that they can understand. Yeah, that's actually what I do every day. I work with drones and robots and data. So it's an important factor for us. I know it's important for our asset owner, energy and utility companies, as well as the technology providers. So it grows each year, and I'm really excited to see the kids and students coming through this year.
Well, I love it. We did flip up that picture of your demo zone, which I think is so cool. Sean, that is where I first met Laurent Zimmerly
Mhm.
from Valero Drones. It was your show that they came from Switzerland. They showcased at EDRC Summit for the first time. I saw that thing fly, and I was in love with that drone, that tricopter. And finally got to work with them. They were on the show a couple weeks ago. They had Cortland Pank from Osprey Integrity. I know he's a big part of your event.
Mhm.
Suncor Energy. So kind of full circle moment for me to see that demo picture and just to recall, like, that's where I saw that really cool drone for the first time. And so people showcase things there for sure. I want to talk about, what else attendees can expect, right? So you've got the demo zones, you've got these kind of different tracks, you've got obviously an expo hall floor where people can walk around. But what else? You just kind of walk us through that.
Sure. So, just touching on the point you just made, Valero is an early adopter moving for that UT ultrasonic thickness testing with the hovering.
Yes.
So, just talking about the expansion, last year we had one humanoid. This year we have probably five. Last year we had maybe one, maybe two that would had the you can touch it, ultrasonic thickness. I think there's
Yep.
five or six this year. So it's
Whoa.
fascinating to me how fast that use case and the dollars and savings are incredible.
Yeah.
But to jump forward beyond the demo zone, which is both flying and on the ground, we have an obstacle course that people can be able to show. I think
Yep.
the other one to really talk about is the other side of the hall. So that's the back right of the hall. The back left of the hall is the innovation zone. And I think that's exciting because you've got our innovation alley is there, and there's a dozen companies. These are up and coming, brand new. These are young companies that are showcasing technologies that haven't been commercially deployed yet, but they're ready to. So these folks are ready to do field trials and use case studies and really get out there. And in some cases, they're fundraising, as well. They're going through the
Yep.
investment rounds. But I think that's cool because we're able to generate, I think, the future. Like we're just talking about the students, right? We need the
Yep.
future operators. Well, this is the future technology, and it is right around the corner. So I think that's exciting that area. And then adjacent to that is the innovation stage. And we've got in 20-minute segments, so just slightly longer than a TED Talk. Well, sorry, the old TED Talk. I know they just reduced their time to 13 minutes. Attention spans are getting so small. But
Yeah.
20-minute spans, we're going to be going through a ton of use cases and tech updates. So that innovation stage is going on, during the whole time the expo is open. The innovation alley is right there. So I think that's not something that we definitely don't want to sleep on that. And we're even doing an innovation challenge where we're having those 12 companies all do 5-minute pitches so that they could talk to the UAV and robotics program leads, the corporate venture capital, venture scouts, as well as a variety of different folks who could help accelerate or have an interest in adopting those technologies. So that's actually a new piece as well that happens on that innovation stage. So there's a lot going on over there, as well as in the demo zone, which has been a traditional area where the commercially available technology is showcased.
Yeah. So you have a lot of people coming, Sean. You always do. Do you want to highlight who might be attending this year?
Yeah, so I mean, if I start naming names, unfortunately, I'm going to forget some.
Yeah, I know. You've got
I
a
will
big
definitely
sponsor list, I think,
say I
on your
could,
website, right?
yeah, I could put it
Yeah.
pretty simply. If you go to the website, you can definitely see who attends. But
Yeah.
pretty much the way we explain it is every major oil and gas, pipeline, chemical, utility in North America is there. So it's just a question of, are they sending a couple folks, or in the case of some oil and gas companies, they send 40 or 50 people. And that really speaks not just to the event, which we of course appreciate that they're willing to commit time and effort and invest to have their team there, but I think it speaks to how far drones and robotics and data have spread in these organizations, that it's not just a UAV program lead or a robotics program lead or innovation team. These are folks who are running plants, are in charge of maintenance, EH&S, and they are using drones and robots daily, or weekly on their
Yeah.
projects. And so that's exciting for us that we're starting to see more folks who are attending that aren't from those traditional departments that you would expect at a drone robotics event.
Yeah, speaking of non-traditional, I think a lot of these professions, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's even technology like robotics or drones, is heavily male dominated. You have something new this year, I think, because I don't remember it from previous years.
Yep.
Are you doing something called The Wire, Women
The
in
Wire,
Robotics and
yes.
Energy?
Yeah,
Tell
it
me, so
is.
tell
Yeah,
me
so
about this, Sean.
we're starting as a meetup, and so that's the idea. Is during Bots and Brews on night 2, we have different groups who do meetups. We have a GIS meetup. We have a drone geophysics remote sensing, the folks who carry those huge magnetometers looking for stuff.
Yep,
And
yep.
Wire is going to be one of the groups that's going to be meeting, which is Women in Energy and Robotics. Sorry, Women in Robotics and Energy.
Right.
Basically, what we're trying to do is encourage the development of having a place that women are able to communicate. There are other organizations that we work with that are fantastic for this, by the way.
Yeah.
Women in Drones is one that we work with, and they are great and certainly are there for people 24/7, all the time. This is just a chance for a meetup because we have seen a certain amount of growth in women entering into the robotics in the energy fields. It's still very small and hopefully will continue to grow, and I know it will. So that's why we wanted to have a place that people could affiliate with one another while they're at our event. And we look for that to hopefully grow into some additional sessions or a workshop similar to our drone and robotics operators forum with that we do at the event, or drone responders for the emergency response crowd. So we're excited about the possibilities of where this could go to help grow that segment of our workforce.
Well, first of all, thank you. You know, I'm going to say something, you don't have to agree, but I feel as a woman compelled to say it. You know, somehow, you know, diversity has become like a negative term, and I think it's ridiculous because um, having had a career in the United States Air Force in a male dominated environment, having other people that were like me that could mentor me, that could answer my questions, even if it's something as simple as, you know, hey, I'm pregnant and I have to wear this other uniform. How's that going to go? Right? Like,
Mhm.
those simple things matter. And, you know, that's like 50% or more of our population. And if we're thinking about this workforce that's going to take our country to the next level, whether in energy or robotics or autonomy or anything, let's not alienate those people, and let's give them a space where, you know, they can feel comfortable and like want to feel welcomed and become part of that bigger effort. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I applaud you. Like I said, I'm sorry I got on my soapbox, but it's something I felt I needed to do. But
That's
I want to,
okay.
like, we only have a couple minutes left. And you know, I want to be sure people know, Sean, when your event is and how they can sign up for it, you know, and how that works.
Sure. So, absolutely. We're June 16th through the 18th here in Houston in the Woodlands. And so, if you want anything around Energy Drone or Robotics Coalition, because beyond the event, we're around all the time. We've got great social channels. We have thousands of followers there that we communicate with every day. We have the weekly newsletter. We do reports, benchmark studies. We do digital events, and we have other events beyond the summit. So edrcoalition.com is the best place to find everything about what we're doing and to get access to all those assets, which are free. I mean, you know, you're able to get that without any charge. So if you're looking for use cases or anything, you have the ability to access that. So edrcoalition.com would be the best spot, or you could definitely look up Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition on LinkedIn or X, and you're going to be able to find us there and see stuff that we're putting out. So whatever channel you like to operate in, we're there for you to get you the best information of what's happening in energy, drone, robotics, and data.
Awesome. And for those that have never attended or that may have attended Exponential in Houston at the George R. Brown Convention Center, realize this event is well across town at the Woodlands Marriott Waterway. Beautiful neighborhood, little river walk there, restaurants. Love that venue, Sean. So just realize that, folks, like in terms of like what airport you're flying into, I think you know, I think the George R. Bush is the closer one, not the Hobby one, which was much closer to the convention center. One last picture here. I'm going to give you this opportunity, Sean, to kind of like wrap it up and, you know, make any concluding remarks. And once again, tell people how they can learn more.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank you so much, Don, for the opportunity, for the continued support. We've loved working with you over the years in all the iterations of what you've been doing with getting information out from, you know, P3 Technologies and Dawn of Autonomy, and now the wonderful Autonomy Global, which is such a great resource for people. So I definitely want to say thank you, and thank you for being so generous and sharing with our audience, as you often do as a moderator and speaker. So that's key, you know, number one. Number two, I just would like to thank everyone in the industry who continues to support as we grow. It's really been very beneficial for all of us, and we have a big tent theory. So it means if you think you should be part of this event, reach out. I mean, we're happy to work to incorporate you, your group, your company, and find a way to work together, because that's how we grow. And we're excited about taking drones and robotics and data to the next level for everyone. So onward and upward. See everybody in about 3 weeks, I hope.
Woohoo. EDRC.com. Is that right? That's what you said?
EDRcoalition.com.
EDRcoalition.com. That's where you find out all the latest. You can sign up for that newsletter, like Sean said, and hopefully we will see you again in Houston here shortly. So thank you again, Sean. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody out there. We are out here.